Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, do, do, da, 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 wiki, 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 da, 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 remix version.
And here we are back for another week full of news, gossip, views, reviews, points of view even, wouldn't you say, Andy?
Very much points of view. I mean, we're all about our own personal points of view, and I think we should just really set our stall out. We do this every now and then, where we just make it clear that anything that we say during the episode, when it comes to reviews of stuff, are just our own opinions. They're not necessarily right or wrong. Don't hold us as being the oracles of like what you should watch and what you shouldn't. Always seek something out if you want to see it yourself. And on that note, the film that we're going to be covering in detail this week was always going to be divisive.
Yes, that's right. We're going to be talking about the Snyder Cut views. And in this episode, we will be looking at a deep dive into the SnyderVerse. I'm just waiting for you to say something.
and a quick dive straight out again. Pixar's next film, Luca, will drop straight to Disney Plus without the premium charge on June the 18th. Now, I've got to ask, who did Pixar annoy that their films don't seem to be worthy of actually getting any money for? Because Soul went straight to free. This is going straight to free and not getting a cinematic release in any territories that has Disney Plus. Pixar should be the gem of the Disney stable, but it seems that they're burying their films, and it makes me wonder what's happened.
Good things come to all who wait was something my mother used to say to me when I was a small boy, and that was bollocks. I started something and I thought there was a punchline. So good things do come to start again. So good things do come to those who wait, and we have seemed to be waiting for Black Widow, well, for nearly a year. So if you're enjoying the show, then please hit the subscribe button, because every time you subscribe, Nicolas Cage makes a film, and you don't want him to ever stop. If you are enjoying it, you can actually find us on radio as well, can't you, Andy?
Yes, we are now broadcasting each week on No Barriers Radio.
But you can find us out and check us out on Instagram,
FilmFile UK.
And you can contact us via Twitter at
FilmFile UK.
Or just drop us an email.
podcast@filmfile.uk.
And you start to see a trend. So if we skip Joss Whedon's Justice League, which we will mention as part of talking about the Snyder Cut, along comes this week Zack Snyder's ultimate cut of the Justice League. I watched it going into it having disliked immensely the theatrical release, as I know you did. I didn't watch it in one sitting. I used the chapters to break it up. That was less about the film and more about me. I was never bored. I liked it and enjoyed it a great deal. I think it's the best for me out of Snyder's take on his excursion into the DC universe. But there's a lot of faults with it. But ultimately, I have to say, before we say anything else, I did have a good time watching an okay movie.
My impression that, yes, it's better than the 2017 release. In fact, if you look at my ratings on Letterboxd, it's twice as good because it got 2 stars instead of 1. It's still a problematic film, and it creates a few new problems for itself. The story is not significantly different. You could read out the synopsis for the Joss Whedon release, and it would match this one perfectly. It's still a bad guy, Steppenwolf, is collecting the mother boxes to combine together to destroy Earth and turn it into a dark future. It's still there. And the fans who've been claiming that Joss reshot 80% of the film, I think that was a bit of an exaggeration. I'd suspect there's at least 60% of the old cut just filtered differently or edited differently to give different kind of approach to it. The character of Cyborg is expanded, but doesn't actually change the story by doing so. And for me, I have to go on record here to say that I've never liked the character of Cyborg anyway.
He's always been a bit dull in the comics. I always preferred him when he was in the Teen Titans. Never quite liked his jump into the Justice League. It felt like tokenism.
Yeah,
And I kind of agree with you. He's emotionally, yes, it's the heart of the film, and those extended scenes did operate. But it's a bit like you. It's not a character that I particularly like.
He's an undefined power. And you get this, like you got this in the Captain Marvel film for Marvel a couple of years ago, that her powers were not defined, so she could do anything, and that made me go, if I can't tell what your weakness is, I'm not that caring. Cyborg, literally, whatever he wants, his body seems to manually adjust to give him it. And also, there's a moment in the film where his automated defense system reacts to the threat of Superman. Yet that same automated defense system doesn't react to any other threats for the whole lot of the film. And it's like, you put that in there for no reason, and now you've created a problem because that's not how you work. One character that did benefit from this cut, though, one character that I got a lot of love for, and I cannot wait to see going forwards, The Flash.
No, I agree. I loved the little sequence where we got to see a bit of backstory. I mean, all the major principals all got a backstory. Some a little bit more than we'd seen before, some completely brand new sequences.
But yeah, the character of the Flash, when Joss Whedon did his reshoots, he'd inserted more comical moments for the Flash, and he was a bit unsure of his powers, and he was afraid and didn't want to get involved, and that diminished the character. Here, he's a character who, right from your very first vision of him, with the car flipping over and him doing all that action, he's confident in his abilities. He knows what he's doing. He's still jittery, but that's his nature. He's not afraid. He's just perfectly skilled, but doesn't know how to apply himself. And the character, I was not sold on Ezra Miller as the character, but now, man, I am well and truly on board, and I cannot wait for the Flashpoint movie, because this gave him the credit that he needed. That introduction scene, I mean, I know it's created loads of memes involving hot dogs online, but you know what? I love the little wry humour to that whole scene. I love the approach of it. An additional character who was added into the film is Martian Manhunter, who gets 2 scenes. And the first scene that he pops up creates a problem. It takes away from the emotion, because he basically, there's a scene where Martha, Superman's Earth mother, and Lois are talking about the loss of him and what it meant. And then when Martha leaves the apartment, turns into Martian Manhunter to show, hey, it was Martian Manhunter all along. That diminishes the emotional impact of Superman's mum talking to Superman's love, and both having their own sorrows. And it's been claimed that the reason that John Jones as Martian Manhunter did that was he needed to get Lois to go to the scene where she would make him realize who he is. But she was already shown earlier on in the film to be going to visit the memorial pretty much on a daily basis anyway. So it wasn't needed, and it just made it so that Martian Manhunter, who has all this power, pops up before all the events kick off and doesn't try to save the planet that he's actually living on.
I totally agree. It made absolutely zero sense to me. As you said, it undermined that relationship and that core of those two characters. Why didn't he put himself forward into the ring if he was so important that it was so important that Lois was a part of Superman's resurrection? Then why wasn't Manhunter part of that resurrection, and then pop up at the end to go, yeah, I'll join your club now. Now all the fighting's finished. It's almost a bit like me. I'll join the war, but I'll wait till it's done. And to be honest, the one element that I liked in the Whedon cut was that Lois was Batman's secret weapon, and I thought that was a nice touch. And it kind of undervalued Lois. She was there by default rather than by design. She saw some aggro going off and heads to the scene. So it makes absolutely no sense. I'll totally agree with you. It was cool to see Martian Manhunter, but that's why it was in, because it was cool rather than it served a purpose to the story. You mentioned right at the beginning of this how much of the film is familiar. And you're right, all the major plot points are there. We get Wonder Woman's introduction in London, which is in the the original cut. Yes, I'll buy it. It's a much longer and darker take on that, but it's still there. The introduction of Bruce Wayne meeting Aquaman is there. The introduction, and everybody went ballistic at the time, thinking this was a Joss Whedon gag with the "What's your superpower? I'm rich." It turns out it's in this film and started here because that was more or less exactly the same scene. So I was actually really surprised at how much of the plot was intact, and how much the beats of the film were pretty much the same. Yes, we got rid of the annoying Russian family, but the ending still takes place in Russia, which is always thought was strange in the first version, and felt that must have been an addition, because why would you put Aquaman so far away from the ocean? It still doesn't make sense to me. Is there was a lack of threat all the way through it, even though Steppenwolf was a much better realized character, looked better, and had a purpose at least. Is I never felt the Justice League characters were at all threatened, and seemed to spend an awful long time talking about a sense of threat than this sort of ticking clock, until the last mother box goes missing, and is retrieved by Steppenwolf. Then there's no threat. I've never felt they were in danger, because you knew, especially when Superman comes back, that Superman is going to sort it all out.
I've seen this commented online over this past week, that Superman is one of the biggest problems with the Justice League, because the Avengers, when the Avengers team up, they need to team up to beat a villain that they can't beat alone. Whereas the Justice League team up to beat a villain that Superman can beat alone. And Superman is too powerful. Why do you need a Justice League if Superman's alive? So
it's a triumph. It's a triumph for Zack Snyder, and congratulations to him. This doesn't happen very often, where a filmmaker gets to go back and complete a piece of work that they intended and wanted to make. It's a triumph for the fans who stuck by it, even though everybody had written it off, including us, and managed to turn through. And managed to turn out a huge, gargantuan epic of a film, and it is epic. Even if you're not going to sit through it in its whole 4-hour running time, you can watch it as chapters and see it as something quite unique. It's confused. It's still messy. It has some terrible dialogue. And it's strangely shot in a 4:3 aspect ratio, which the fans have been saying, yes, that's because it's for IMAX. But when this film isn't getting an IMAX release and getting a home cinema release, makes absolutely no lick of sense to me. And to some extent, sort of stunts the visuals of it, in my opinion. Doesn't change my mind of Zack Snyder. I think he's got a unique vision, and as moments go, he knows how to portray a great moment. But the narrative lapses on it are just too frustrating, and at times weaken what could be a classic film. You could have lost 40 minutes out of this 4-hour cut and created a better film, but that's not what the fans wanted. They wanted their cake, and they wanted to eat
it. For me, it was, yes, better than the last version that was out, but still, there's nothing there that really needed to be there and really needed to exist. It's overlong. It needed at least an hour taken out of it to maybe get an average film.